Hello everyone! Today I would like to discuss the differences between a hospital birth and a home birth. I personally have had 2 hospital births, 3 home births, and I'm about to have my 4th. And I want to talk about what I've noticed in my own births, as well as being a doula and a midwife birth assistant, assisting a lot of different births, both in the hospital setting and in the home setting. I'm going to go into this not being super biased because I know that you can talk to some people who are very, home birth, natural birthing oriented, or on the more medical side. I feel like I have a good handle on some of the pros and cons that come with both kinds of births. And of course, there's kind of a middle ground in there, which is a birth center. Now, here in the town that I live in, we just got, within the last year, a birth center, and we haven't had one before. So that wasn't an option for me in the years past, but a lot of you have that as an option as well. I'm just going to talk about my experience with a hospital birth and a home birth, and then hopefully this might help you make a decision if you're trying to decide between the two, what fits you and your personality better. So first of all, I think the most important aspect of this whole decision is where you feel like you will be most comfortable. Now, this is taking into consideration all of these different factors. And I'm going to touch on some of those later on, but your comfort level is of the utmost importance when you go into labor. And there's a number of different reasons for that. Number one, if you're not comfortable, it could stall labor. You have a bunch of physical responses to the emotion of being uncomfortable and not in surroundings that are conducive to labor and birth. So it really does come down to your comfort level. You really need to pull in and figure out what kind of a setting is going to make you feel like you don't have to concentrate on anything else but your labor and taking care of your needs and the needs of the baby in this very present moment that is labor. And it really is different for everyone. It all comes down to what's going to take off any sort of anxiety or weight or stress and just allow you to open up and allow your body to do what it's supposed to do. So that is my number one suggestion in trying to make this decision. Close your eyes, put yourself in the setting of each one. Where is that place where you feel like you can just let go? So that is my number one suggestion and the place to start when trying to make this decision. That leads into number 2, which is the setting, the controlled setting. How much control do you want to have over the environment in which you give birth? So some examples of this to kind of brainstorm when you're putting yourself in that place to see which one is right for you. The people that you want around you, the kind of food that you want to eat, the mobility that you have. Walking around, do you want to, walk around your hospital room? Do you want to walk around your house? Do you want to walk the halls of a hospital? Do you want to walk your block? Other factors that you want to keep in mind: do you have a certain vision for the kind of labor that you want to have? What position you want to be in when you actually give birth? Do you have a preference as to who catches the baby? Do you want to have an IV in or not? Some other factors: do you want to be kind of on a time restraint or not really? How much privacy do you want? So, these are all different factors, and I'm going to kind of put these in perspective here. So, if you have a hospital birth, most likely you are going to be hooked up to an IV, which might limit your mobility. You have, a room that you can exist in with whoever you have, whether it be, your spouse or a doula or whoever you've brought in to help you with your labor. You have a limited amount of food that you can eat. In the hospital, they don't really allow you to eat when you're in labor. I think you get ice chips or a popsicle. If it's important to you that you'd like to eat something more than that, then obviously you might want to entertain a home birth. So there are some limitations with a hospital birth where you are kind of on a time limit. They don't like to say it that way, but hospitals are a business, and there are a certain amount of beds and a certain amount of turnover that needs to happen. And knowing that going in, they don't want you taking up the bed for 2 days, obviously. They want you to get in and labor and be done. And a lot of women, that's what you want to do. You don't want this to drag on as long as possible. And that's why you learn to use certain tools and techniques to get labor going, and you want to be calm and relaxed to allow your body to open up. So, these are the kind of factors that you want to keep in mind. So with a home birth, you're really not on a time restraint. You can labor as long as you want, as long as you need, as long as your water hasn't broken, because then you're risking introducing infection. But otherwise, it's your pace. Nobody's going to rush you through. No one's going to be, asking to put you on Pitocin to help speed things along. So, if you are more of a type of person that wants to be on their own pace, not have to worry about time restraints, not have to worry about fighting a nurse about Pitocin, maybe then going down the path of a home birth might be right for you. So if these are factors that don't concern you, you're not too worried about controlling your environment, you don't really mind nurses and doctors and people walking in and out of your room and not really being able to control the environment so much, you're just there to have the baby, then, that's fine. Then, the hospital birth might be the best place for you because a lot of that is taken care of for you. That leads me to the next point, which is having things all taken care of for you. Now, I've known so many women that say, gosh, a home birth sounds great, but I don't want to worry about my room being clean. I don't want to worry about, having groceries in the fridge so that I have food after I have the baby. I don't want to worry about cleanup. I don't want to worry about all these little aspects. I want to go to the hospital, have all that taken care of for me, so I can come home to my house and not give any of that a second thought. So many women are like that, and that's so fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That is a mentality of just, going somewhere to birth and having everything taken care of, as opposed to having to deal with all of this extra stuff that does come with a home birth. You do need to worry about, your space being in an order that at least will allow you to be calm and relaxed. And again, that's totally up to you, however that looks for you. Obviously you'd want to have some groceries or someone that can go get food if you want it through labor or afterwards. Taking into consideration if you have other children. For me, I love the fact that my children will be at my births, but some people don't like that. They want to have this separate experience away from their home, away from the rest of the family. And that's perfectly fine. I like to integrate that experience into my family and into my home, but that's just how I am. I'm antisocial, and my home is my safe place, and that's just how I am. But I can understand and see exactly how a lot of women would like to just go to the hospital and have it all taken care of. Now, obviously, with a home birth, you're not going to give birth and there be a mess and then you're over there cleaning it up. As a midwife birth assistant, that was my job. I would clean up after the births and take care of the mom, so much so that any sort of soiled laundry or anything that had blood on it or anything like that, I would do the wash for the mama. So you're not going to be necessarily taking care of all of that stuff yourself. You will have help. But, you're going to need to have a certain amount of towels and baby blankets, and there's going to be things that you need to prepare for that you'll need to purchase before the home birth, and certain things that you're going to need to dispose of after the home birth. So there's definitely a process that requires you to be an active participant prior to and after the home birth in order to make the birth go smoothly and reintegrate back into your normal life. Either way, it is so important to educate yourself. If you are pregnant and you're trying to make this decision between a hospital birth and a home birth, I implore you to really educate yourself. If you have a doula, they will help educate you in your rights and your options, and regardless of where you have the baby, knowing the process, knowing the different things that might arise, knowing that if you are having a hospital birth, that if things aren't moving as fast as they'd like, that the word Pitocin's going to come up, and then you should be prepared mentally on how you want to handle that. You want to advocate for yourself, be knowledgeable, have these tools in your head so that you know some of these words and kind of what these things will lead to, and be able to advocate your wants. And that includes, if you go to a hospital, having a birth plan. And again, if you have a doula, they'll help you with that. If you don't, you can Google birth plan and put one together yourself. Do you want the cord cut immediately? Do you want delayed cord cutting? Do you want to labor a certain way? How do you want this birth to go if you were to script it yourself? That is an empowering experience, putting something like that together. Whether it plays out exactly like your birth plan, again, there's so many variables that are out of our control in birth that you can't say exactly, but at least you're armed with the information to have a plan as to what it is that you want, and be strong enough to advocate for yourself if you don't have someone maybe there that is advocating for you. Now that I've gone over some of the different aspects between a home birth and a hospital birth, I can tell you from personal experience, my first hospital birth was not a great experience. But that is because I was not educated and I was not advocating for myself. I take full responsibility for that. So that's why I'm here trying to impart this information to you. You need to arm yourself with information. Know your options. Know the process. I had my second son at the hospital. And this time I was armed. I had educated myself. I walked in with a birth plan. I told every single nurse that came into the room, hey, I want this as natural of a birth that I can in a hospital. I want nothing hooked up to me unless it is absolutely medically necessary. I just want to be here. I don't want people walking in and out. I just want to labor, and then I want to go home. And the nurses were wonderful. I think, of course, it's going to depend on the kind of hospital you're at and how busy they are. And I was actually one of only 2 mothers having a baby at this time at this brand new hospital. I lucked out. And they were just so happy to have someone there. And they listened to everything that I said. And I didn't have to have my husband barricade the door because that was one of my requests. I just did not want people in there. It was a 6-hour labor. I pushed 2 times. He was born. I was out of there within a few hours. It was incredible. It was a great hospital birth. So comparing and contrasting the 2 hospital births. One was just a train wreck. The second one was wonderful. Totally natural birth in a hospital setting. What was the difference? The first one I wasn't educated and I didn't advocate for myself. So I can honestly say I think that is the main difference between having an awful experience at a hospital birth and having a wonderful experience at a hospital birth. Of course, there are a lot of different variables that could have come into play, but just in hindsight, that's what I see. The next birth I had, I decided I was going to have a home birth. I felt like I had birthed naturally at the hospital setting and that I could translate that into my home setting. And I did. And it was wonderful. It was empowering. It was incredible. And I can say that the difference between that great hospital birth and my first home birth was that it really was great being home. It was wonderful integrating that experience into my home life. I enjoyed that immensely. And being able to birth and then get right into my bed with my baby and my first son, and just all of a sudden that's life. That's life with this new little being. And that was wonderful. And so, of course, every birth after that has been a home birth, and they have all been unique and fantastic in their own way. Some of them harder than others. My last home birth was, 28 hours and a lot more challenging than my other ones. But that was, again, there's so many factors at play. But I am the type of personality where I am most relaxed in my home setting. I don't want all the extra stuff happening. I like to be in control of what my environment is, and especially after. I'm kind of a germaphobe. Hospitals kind of creep me out because of that. There's just a lot of different factors that play into my comfort level. And again, that is where you're really going to have to do some soul searching on what makes you the most comfortable. So then there are a lot of factors that I'm not going to touch on because I feel like a lot of people already do. The differences in cost, the availability of anesthesia, if something were to go wrong. Okay, there's plenty of articles out there about all this stuff. So I don't want to touch on those things. Everybody touches on those. I just wanted to talk more about my experience and why I feel like just educating yourself, really soul searching and figuring out where your comfort level lies, and knowing your personality. So the third option that I really haven't touched on is a birth center birth. And the reason, like I said before, I haven't explored that is because we haven't had one in our town and until just recently. And so obviously I haven't had a birth center birth, and I have a very little exposure to assisting births in a birth center. But those are another wonderful option that's kind of a hybrid between the two. So definitely worth exploring if you find yourself kind of in the middle between those two. If you have a birth center in your town, then oh my gosh, that might be the perfect option for you. So I hope this gives you a little bit of insight on the differences between a home birth and a hospital birth. It is absolutely possible to have a very wonderful natural birth in a hospital setting. And if you find yourself leaning that way, educate yourself. Really know your options going in so that you can have that kind of a birth. And of course, home births, they're just incredible. They're empowering, they're amazing, and they are a whole experience in and of themselves. I'm so excited to have my fourth home birth. So I wish you luck in figuring out which option is best for you. Either a hospital birth, a birth center birth, or a home birth. They're all wonderful just as long as you take that responsibility to know your options and advocate for yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this has helped, and until next time, be well.